Welcome to the Fitness Freedom Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to have Nan Seysana. She's a coach who specializes in helping women who lift to stop binge eating. For over 6 years, she's helped women stop overeating, beat cravings and binges, and reach their goals through a simple, kind mindset approach. She also lives in Paris with her family and cat Eva. And I'm so excited to have you, Nan, on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to chat with you.
I know. I'm so happy to have you through our email correspondence. I could just tell that we would have good synergy, and I'm excited to talk with you and get into your brain a little bit about how you do your work. So, can you just start off by telling us a little of the story of how you got into this work in the first place for yourself?
Yes. So I used to be an English teacher in Paris, so that was my dream job, the dream place to live for me, at least. The dream husband, the dream kids, the cat. But I was miserable, and I had been miserable for 30 years when I found the solution finally. And what I mean by that is that whenever I experienced a big emotion like stress, anger, something like that, I didn't know how to manage this, and I would just go to the pantry, grab a jar of Nutella, grab a jar of peanut butter, whatever I had, or I go and buy some, and I would eat. And I would eat to the point that I was completely full and completely lethargic and feeling terrible. So that had been going on for 30 years, ever since I was about 16, I guess, after trying to go on a diet, like so many teenagers do, especially in our culture. And I lost some weight and I got compliments, and then I got scared because I didn't feel safe anymore. And it was also weird to be complimented for getting thinner and thinner, and as if I was going to disappear. And so I kept, since that time, I started overeating when I was feeling unsafe, when I was not feeling great. And of course, I didn't like the effect of overeating. And I would then go back to dieting because I thought that was the solution. You know, you eat too much, you gain too much weight. So of course, you go on a diet. Diet is mentioned everywhere. So it just made sense to my 16-year-old brain. But the more I did that, the more I felt out of control with food. And I stopped trusting myself and my body around food. And I started fearing food and starting fearing being terrified of, having these urges to eat. Because I thought there was nothing I could do about this. It felt so automatic, as if something had taken over me. So it was not fun. No, it's not fun. I felt, yeah. Mm.
Yeah, and then what happened? How did you get out of that? How did you find a solution?
Right, yes. So for 30 years, I kept looking for a solution. So I thought, first of all, that maybe the diet I was following was not the right one. So I kept jumping from one diet to another one, changing what food I was eating, the amount of food I was eating, really thinking that food could solve it. But of course, it didn't work. And now I know that that could never work. I also tried, to exercise my way out of binge eating. And so I ran for marathons. I trained for several marathons. I finished two, still feeling really miserable, not even being happy when I finished the marathon because I was still binge eating. So how could I, feel accomplished for ending a marathon when I was still having this secret struggle? So I kept looking, I kept looking. And then after my daughter was born, so I wanted to have more things to think of than just a baby, because a baby's communication is quite limited. It's not fantastic, but I wanted more to think of. And I started listening to podcasts. And that's how I found first a podcast that I can no longer find online, which is Inside Out Weight Loss by Bernie Stevens. And she was not really talking about weight loss, but more about what was going on for us in terms of our emotions, in terms of our thoughts, what was going on in our brain really before we ate or after we ate. And that completely shifted the focus from food to the human being eating the food. And she was also teaching me how to be kind to myself. And that's a concept that I completely lost sight of because I was so used to being mean to myself for once more having decided, well, today I'm going to be good, but ending the day, head first in ice cream when I don't even like ice cream. It's cold. I don't like the cold. So so it didn't make sense to me. So I kept beating myself up, and that didn't help. I now know that beating myself up was just making me want to completely run away from me, from this bully I had inside of me, and of course, looking for comfort in food. So it kept the cycle running again and again, and didn't help. So Renée Stevens, with her podcast, taught me that I could be kind to myself, that actually it was okay, and even more, that was key. That was the solution. So that was the first thing. I was just, oh, I can be kind to myself. It's possible, and it's actually the solution, part of the solution. Amazing. And then when I binged, of course, as I did this podcast, listened to it again and again, I wanted more. I want to understand even more what she was saying. So I looked for another podcast, and that's how I discovered Brooke Castillo's podcast that's still online, which is called the Life Coach School podcast. And it took several listening to at the beginning to really understand, because at the beginning I was thinking well, what she's saying is that our thoughts create our emotions, and my emotions are what's driving me to binge. And it would make sense intellectually, but it was so weird and such a new concept to me that it it felt too weird to, so I could stop listening. But I would go back and listen again to the podcast. It made more and more sense again and again. So much so that I kept listening to it, and I was really studying the podcast and the transcript, and really diving deep into that. And when she opened her membership, I joined, and slowly, too slow for me at that time, of course, because I was so impatient, but slowly I noticed that the binging, the urges, everything got less frequent, less intense, and less long too. And I really love that work so much. It changed my life so much that when she launched her first certification online, I thought, oh, well, I want to learn more. So I did that certification. That's how I became a coach. I never intended to be a coach, but I just love that work so much. And it was so life-saving, basically, that I'm so grateful for, this work that was available to me, and that changed me so much. That's
Yes.
a short story.
Yes, I love that model. It's the circumstances are neutral, and we have thoughts about the circumstances, which create feelings, which will drive our actions, and then that's the results we get in our life. I'm doing some coaching personally, actually, to be pretty personal with in the aspect of relationships. I'm
Mhm.
working with a coach using that model, and it's been so helpful. It's so helpful.
Mhm.
Just like slowing down and noticing what is
Yeah.
happening in my brain and just kind of breaking it down.
Mhm.
And then I've been thinking about this a lot actually lately in my life about guilt and the function of guilt. And like you said, with binge eating, there's this like, I shouldn't, and then I do it, and then I feel, so horrible
Mhm.
about myself afterwards. And sometimes that can, well, I'm curious for you, like with your experience personally and with your clients, like, why do we do something that feels so bad? You know what I mean? Like, why do we keep doing the binge eating behaviors when we know it's not what we want really, and we know it makes us feel horrible, and it's this cycle? Why do you think we stay stuck in that? And so many people are there listening to this even. Like, why do we do such, I know, self-sabotaging behaviors?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think it's because, for lack of anything else, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, so in a very traditional French family, I was never taught how to feel my emotion. And even I think that the message was, well, if you don't have any emotion, that's even better. So don't express your emotions, don't cry, don't say you're
Yeah.
afraid, don't say you love. Even
Mm.
my son, my mom keeps telling me, don't tell your son you love him. And I'm just like, why? That's so weird. It's just, but that runs in the family. So don't express your emotion was the first message. And then if you do have emotion, please keep them to yourself.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that's the message. So of course, I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know it was because of my emotions, of course, that I was eating so much. Um, so I think that it's simply a coping mechanism. I turn to food. Some people turn to cigarettes. Some people turn to alcohol. Some people turn to shopping, gossiping, biting their nails. There are so many little behaviors like this that are actually coping mechanism for the lack of anything better. Yeah, and you were mentioning guilt, and yes, we know we're not supposed to do this. This is not good for us. We know the impact it has for us, and yet we keep going there. But I think it's also linked to the guilt. The more guilty we feel about doing this, the more we keep doing it because we don't want to feel guilty. So it's a running away mechanism. It's an escaping mechanism. So if I'm making me feel guilty for doing something, even though I have no idea of what else I could be doing, then I don't want to feel the guilt. So yeah, I keep doing this escaping behavior, like scrolling on my phone, so that I don't think about me. I'm just distracting myself.
So it's really like an emotional regulation
I
mechanism,
think so. Yeah.
for lack of better ways of coping.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's so not about the food, like you said, it's about what's happening inside. Can you just, so we get to like really practical, I think it's helpful sometimes to like get into what it actually looks like because a part of it is shame, right? Like
Mm,
no one else is doing this. It's secretive. No one else knows about the behaviors I have, so I have to hide them. And I just kind of want to get into like for you personally and or your clients, like what does it really look like to be
mm,
in a binge eating cycle? Like I don't want to get too like we don't have to be into all the details of exactly how much you're eating, but like
mm.
how does it look in a day or in a week? Like for you personally or for some of your clients, how does it actually look? So maybe people can feel even less shame, I guess, or feel like they can relate a little bit more to the behaviors and be like, oh, I'm not the only one. What does it look
Absolutely.
like actually?
Yeah. And I love this question because that was actually my belief. I thought I was the only one in the world. So there was, of course, so much shame and it was very secretive. So the secret was really that I would find ways to be on my own. And as soon as I was on my own, for instance, when my kids were in bed and when my husband was practicing Aikido, then as soon as I heard the door shut, I would go and have a look at the food I had bought secretly that was hidden in my bag. And I would eat it all fast for fear that somebody would interrupt me. Um, and I would eat it all because if I left some, then that would be evidence that there was food at some point, but I had eaten most of it. So I couldn't, I had to hide the evidence. It sounds like, murder story or something, but it's really, it was that thing I must hide. Nobody must know. So I would, for the wrappers tinily, put them at the bottom of my pockets, not in the home bin, but when I got out, I would throw them in a public bin outside on the street because I didn't want people to know. And yeah, and that was really a secret in the sense of, yeah, I didn't want people to see me because I didn't want them to judge me. But of course, the judgment was in my head because I was anticipating what they would think of me. I was also thinking it about myself. There's such a heaviness in our culture about people read too much, and it's it's not, we don't try to understand because of course we don't have the tools, we don't have the knowledge, so we tend to blame and we tend to judge when in reality behind this there's so much pain. Mm.
Oh, yes, there's so much pain underneath it. And may I ask, in general, what kind of foods would you binge on? And I'm asking this because of the reason why you felt shame about these specific foods. Like, I'm guessing it probably, although this is not impossible, but I'm guessing probably there were foods that were higher in like salt or sugar or fats.
Mm. Totally. Absolutely. Yes. Basically, I loved having cake. So I would buy a cake. There's the in French it's called barre pâtissière. It's like a sponge cake if you want. And I would eat it all. It was big, but I would eat it all. I was not afraid. I would take the biggest packet of M&Ms there was. I would eat it all in one go. Peanut butter. I loved peanut butter. Nutella, as I said. But even when I was living with my parents, because I didn't have my own money, I would go to the pantry and I would eat rhubarb jam that my mum was making. That was making me sick, but I would finish the whole thing in one go. Um, I didn't even like it. There was ice cream, didn't like it. Never mind, I would have it. Even also remember when my mother-in-law gave us matcha cake, so green cake. To me, it didn't look even appetizing because a green cake, that sounded weird to me. But still, I ate it all in one evening. Um, so
Yeah, yeah. It's the foods that often it's the foods that society considers bad foods,
yes,
right? Right?
yeah,
Like unhealthy or not good for you. Otherwise, if you were doing something that might be positive
mm,
for you, you might feel not as guilty. But it was almost like you needed to feel bad about it.
right, yes. And I think it was also coming from exactly that story you're mentioning. It is this food is bad for me. If I have this story that a food is bad, and I shouldn't have it, it makes it special. It's really this forbidden food. I shouldn't have it, but at the same time, I do want it. So it's really this. I want this, but I can't. That actually fuels the desire for the food, and that makes it even bigger. Because when I slowed down, finally, when I allowed myself to have the Mars bars, I was also very keen on Mars bars, Snickers bars, and so on. When I slowed down and allowed myself to have it and to really enjoy it, I realized I didn't like this as much as I
Mhm.
thought I did. So there was really the idea that I love that, but it was only because I was forbidding myself from having it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And thank you for being so honest about that. I remember because I've had that experience as well. I spent a lot of years with like restriction. That's my story. And then it became more like binge eating behaviors. And it was always like breads or sweets or salty things. And they were foods that I never allowed myself to have in my restrictive period. And because they were bad, they quote unquote bad, it gave me like a thrill to be able to have something, almost like this inner rebel wanted to
Yes.
express itself. And I think one of the biggest, like you mentioned, one of the biggest parts of my healing and being at peace with food is like no foods are bad. And when you take that out, then it's like, oh, then I don't need to feel guilty at all for anything that I eat. But our culture and like diet culture really, really reinforces this idea that there's healthy foods which are good and unhealthy foods which are bad, and it just reinforces
Totally.
this behavior. So thank you so much for being so honest and detailed and saying it in such a like an open, non-shamey way.
Mm.
That's really what heals.
Yes.
That really heals us. So this is a big question, and you can break it down however you want, but how do we rebuild safety with food? How do
Mm.
we start feeling safer with food? Because I'm using the word safe, but
Mm.
also how do we stop those binging behaviors or stop having that pattern of like guilt and then penitence, guilt and penitence?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So I love your question. And I think it's well, we start by noticing what happened. First, we start looking into what happened after the facts, just like um, if we were an athlete, doing the Olympics, training for the Olympics, we would record, we would shoot a video of the performance so that then after the facts, we would observe it from a curious, not a judgmental, furious, critical place, but really to just notice, okay, what happened? And do we want to change anything about it? So it's really after the facts, okay, I binged. I ate way too much. It's not what I wanted. Now what? Can I have a look? Can I be curious? Can I try to understand why I did that? And I used the model. So I learned that I must have felt something that drove me to eat. I must have thought something that made me feel the way I felt so that I would eat. And it was really being one step at a time, going through this one step at a time, understanding, oh, it's because I was stressed about this other thing that has nothing to do with food. Um, and and that's why I ate the whole cake. Or that's because I felt powerless about that situation in class, maybe when I was a teacher. Um, and because I don't like feeling powerless, I was trying to do something about it. What can I do? I can eat. Okay. So little by little, I started understanding after the facts what was happening. And because I was eating on a regular basis, I had plenty of opportunities to explore and to be curious, to be the detective rather than the judge, who sentences you to prison or whatever. And that was the first step, noticing after the facts. And then I started noticing during, because what I learned is that it's not a brand new situation all the time. No, very often the triggers are the same. I felt stressed on a regular basis, and oh, that led me to overeating again. Okay, good to know that stress tends to do this for me, and anger and so on, loneliness. And so I could expect, once I understood that, I could expect those behavior to happen when I was feeling stressed. And then I would notice in the moment, oh, I'm overeating. I didn't mean that to happen, but I am. I don't have to stop, but I can explore. I can be curious also about that. What's happening right now? What's going through my mind? What do I want to avoid or escape, etc.? And that was probably stress, loneliness, boredom, the usual culprit. And then the last step was actually noticing before it happened. I'm having an urge. I can feel right now this tension within my body. It's usually the first sign that I didn't notice before that I'm going to want food. So, what can I do? I can make it happen. It's okay. I can eat. There's nothing wrong with eating. We humans eat, okay? So what? But I can also choose something else because I also know, based on this repetition, that food is not going to help. On the contrary. So, what would be, again, Rennie Stevens in my head, what would be the kind thing for me to do so that I feel better with or without the food? So that's how you go.
That
That's
is
how it works.
so helpful. That is so clear and so helpful. Even like my brain hearing that, it's like that makes so much sense. So it's starting with looking back.
Right.
Okay, so looking back at an episode,
Yes.
what was happening and approaching it with curiosity rather than criticism. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes because we
Yes.
are so judgmental, but starting with kindness, curiosity. And then once you start noticing those patterns, you're able to start getting into the moment of when it's happening. And that can be really hard, I think, because there is that like, there's the fear, there's the excitement, there's the guilt, there's the like pressure to get it done, there's the stress that you're experiencing. I think that's the hardest part, for at least from
Mm.
my experience.
Mm-mm.
But then the more you practice both of those, then you can start noticing before it happens. Hey, what are my triggers? What is going on here? That is
Mm-hmm.
so helpful. And can you, because I can see on your screen, and for those who are watching the video, they can see it on your background. But for those who are just listening to this podcast, can you break down just a little bit more the model and maybe even like an example of what that might look like? And for listeners, it's circumstances, thought, feeling, actions, results. Can you
Absolutely.
break it down just a little bit more? This is so helpful.
Right, right, right. So let's imagine there's peanut butter in the kitchen. So that's what we call a neutral circumstance. It's just some food somewhere around the planet at a given time. That's it. The peanut butter cannot make you want it. It cannot make you eat it unless you have a thought about the peanut butter. And for me, it was, ooh, this is special. Because when I grew up, I was I was a French kid, and in France, there was no peanut butter. It was just this thing that I could only have when I went to England with this wonderful family I used to spend summers with. So it was full of memories. And so when there was peanut butter at home, it was just like, oh, this is so good. And and then when I thought this is so good, of course I wanted it. There was this desire, this impulse, this urge, this craving, whatever you name it, but this wanting it. And so when I wanted it, which was the emotion, then I would have it and I would eat it. That would be the actions that I took because I felt this desire coming from that thought. Oh, this is so good. And so it's true that the result that I created for myself, that I made myself feel good by having the food, but only for a split second, because then I would feel bad. That was really the long-term result that I created for myself. I felt bad after eating the whole peanut butter jar, and then for feeling bloated, and then for having this judgment in my head that, oh, again, you've done it again. You really should know better. When are you going to learn? All this made me feel terrible. So that's the model. But what's interesting is that the peanut butter doesn't do anything, as I said. And for the very same food, somebody could have a very different thought, like, "Ooh, peanut butter, poison, it's dangerous." Some people we know are allergic to peanuts. So the food doesn't do anything. It's really our thoughts about it that make all the difference, that we create actually or reality by taking action, by feeling a certain way, because we're choosing, even though we don't always know we're choosing, but we're choosing to see or reality or circumstances or situation a certain way.
Yeah, and in your example, there's two circumstances. There's a circumstance before the peanut butter exists in your kitchen, then you have
Mhm.
that thought, I want it's special feeling, I want it. And then the aftermath too. Circumstance, I ate the whole jar of peanut butter. What is my thought about it? I'm horrible, I messed up. And the feeling is guilt, and then the action might be, you do it again, or you restrict for a while, and then you feel horrible. So there's like different ways you can break it down. That's so helpful. And
Mhm.
this model just helps us put the power back in our hands, realizing that we do have that choice, right?
Totally. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
So good. So how do this is the brain part of things, like understanding the framework. And then also, especially like during, where that can be helpful with looking back, but like during, there's an aspect of needing to kind of check in with your body,
Mhm.
listen to what's happening. How do you learn to listen to your body?
Mm.
And sometimes this can be such a heady idea of like, listen to your body. And people are like, I don't even know what that means, because if I listen to my body, I just want the whole jar of peanut butter, or I want to eat the whole bag of chips. Like, that's what I want to do if I'm listening to my body.
Mhm.
But how do you actually listen to your body, especially after years of not listening to it? Like you said, you didn't even like ice cream, or it
Right.
feels uncomfortable in your belly after you've eaten so much food, more than your body might want. How do you start to listen? How do you learn to listen to your body?
Yes, it's a great question because you're right. I didn't even know what was going on in my body. I didn't feel anything when I binged. I knew I felt terrible afterwards, but I could, if you had asked me to describe what it was like, I wouldn't have been able to. So I was completely disconnected from my body. And what's going on in our bodies are sensations. So that, for instance, could be when you're feeling cold, that's a sensation, but also emotions when you're feeling guilty, for instance. We talked about that, or shame. But I was completely disconnected from both sensations and emotions. So I had to learn. And I think I had to learn again how to feel my sensations. Like, for instance, hunger cues. I was so used to overeating that I was never hungry because each time I felt a little bit hungry, I would panic, so I would stuff myself. So I was not sure what even hunger was. So I learned that again because I think that when I was a baby, I must have known. When I started that diet and that binge cycle, I forgot. So I started learning that again by using what we call a hunger scale. If you look that online, you're going to have lots of hunger scale. And basically, the most simple one could be it goes from zero, you're completely starving, and 10, you're completely stuffed. And in between, of course, there are different grades. And maybe the 5 would be, I'm neither hungry, I'm neither full, I'm just feeling good. Maybe because I'm in the middle of a meal, maybe something like that. And it helped me notice by practicing this hunger scale again and again after eating when I was hungry, etc. Um, it helped me see where I was and reconnect with what it meant to be having too much, what it meant to be really hungry. Um, and um, and I learned little by little what it was again. So that's what I did with my sensations. And in terms of emotions, I had to completely learn that because I had no clue what emotions were because I didn't have the vocabulary. So my emotional vocabulary was extremely limited. It was either I'm feeling good, I'm feeling bad. But even shame, guilt, I couldn't distinguish the two. Now I know when you're feeling guilty, it's because you're thinking I've done something wrong. But when you're feeling ashamed, it's because you're thinking I'm wrong. So there's something wrong with me, right? It's not the action, it's you, or at least what you think about you, of course. So I had to learn that. And to do that, I just simply went from, okay, like an organigram, a little decision tree. It's just, okay, I'm feeling good or bad. Okay, I think I'm feeling rather bad. Okay, what kind of bad is it? And what helped me was there was this sad, mad, uh, scared, and glad. And so when I was feeling bad, I was asking myself, okay, am I feeling sad? Am I feeling mad? Am I furious at myself, angry, or something like that? Or am I feeling scared? What is the closest word? What's the closest label to what I'm currently feeling? And then when I was thinking, well, it's not exactly that, let's look for another word, I would look at lists of emotions names, or there's also online something that's super useful, which is called the emotional wheel, which is basically a wheel with at the center very basic emotions, but the bigger the wheel gets, the more refined and specific the emotions are. So that really helped because then I could learn looking for the right word matching my emotions. I also learned that there was no right or wrong emotions in terms of if I was deciding that I was feeling frustrated, that was the right word. And I was the only one who knew. And if that felt true to me, that was right. My answer was the right answer instead of, second guessing myself and asking for permission to feel this way. No, it's fine. I can even feel jealous, and that's okay.
Yes, again, taking the morality out, the good or the
Yes.
bad of course, it can feel negative, it can feel pleasant, or it can feel painful, but none of it is morally better or worse. All feelings are equal and valid. That's so helpful. And isn't it so fascinating how, we started this conversation thinking like, oh, it's about the food, it's about the binge eating, but really it's about the emotional landscape inside of us and what's happening. I know I can relate to that. When I went to my first therapist for eating disorder recovery, my first counselor, and I remember I was like 19 and she asked me, how are you feeling? And she started like getting into my emotions. I was like, I have no idea. I was so disconnected from my body, so disconnected from my emotions, and like working with other therapists, like using the feelings wheel, even just practicing like every day. That was one of my assignments from a therapist is like, just look at the emotions wheel and try to figure out where you are. And it could be multiple feelings at the same time. You could feel joyful, and then you could also feel like angry at the same time, and just starting to identify your emotions. That is so helpful. And then separating those emotions from what is happening physically in your body with the hunger scale. It's almost like those two tools can help at the
Totally.
same time. Okay, that is so good. And I do want to, because you do help people who lift and you lift yourself. So I'm curious about how that plays into, because there's the food aspect and then there's the movement aspect that we kind of associate with fitness and health. But how did you get into lifting? How do you balance that with all of the food stuff without like going into that like I'm going to eat and then I'm going to work it off. I'm going to eat and then work it off. How do you like be in that healthy place as you lift?
Right. So I got into lifting about 23 years ago when my best friend um, took me to what was it called? Body pump class. And I just fell in love with the exercise. I just thought, oh, that I felt so powerful afterwards, after lifting weights. That was really new to me, but I wanted more of that. So I've been lifting more or less, for the past 23 years. But when I turned 49, I decided that I would lift even more because I really wanted to gift my future self a strong body. And my grandmother is 106, so maybe it's in my genes to live a long life. I'd rather have a strong body, the strongest body I can, if possible, so that I can be autonomous for the longest possible. So that that's what really drove me to lifting weights. And also I like to think of it like it's. I don't like games. I don't like video games, but this sounds like a game to me because when I see myself progressing, it feels so good. When I see myself lifting heavier and feeling stronger, that feels so, I don't know, rewarding. I really like that sensation. And I love your question, how do you balance? Because I think that it's really a matter of balancing. So when I was about to be 50, I hired a trainer and I did what lots of people do, the macro things, following macro. And I did. And I learned a lot about how much better I felt with more protein. I didn't know that. I thought, on the contrary, that I was doing okay with little protein, but I understood that I feel so much better with more protein. So I'm doing that, but I don't follow my macros anymore in the sense that I don't obsess over the food that I eat and the grams. I don't weigh anymore because I want to trust myself. I think that just like with my kids, I thought it was so much more important to trust them than really to have them do the right thing. But really to just let them know that they could come to me with anything. And it's the same with food. I want to be able to, whatever the situation, whether I've got a scale or not, whether I've got access to this or not, to trust myself and to try things and not to have this crutch of relying on a plan or something like that. So right now I'm eating more protein, but also vegetables because I'm noticing that my body thrives on that. So I guess it's just a science experiment, a big science experiment, and we try things, we see what works, we see what doesn't, and then we learn from that and we keep trying new things.
Yeah, approaching it with curiosity, again, over criticism and
Mhm.
trust over trying to get it right. That's where it is. That's
Mhm.
where it is. And that's where we feel good about it, right?
Yes.
Um, that's so cool with lifting and with strength. And I noticed how you said it felt good, it felt empowering. It wasn't like doing something because you ate a lot and now I need to work it off and separating that like the movement aspect. Because in like fitness culture, we really tie, and not that it's not related, it's very related, but we tie like our nutrition so much with our movement. And that I've noticed with my own self and with my clients, the more we can separate like burning calories and eating calories from each other, especially if you're recovering from like binge eating disorder or
Mhm.
any kind of disordered eating. It's so helpful because once you do that, then movement becomes its own thing, food becomes its own thing. And as you heal, you can kind of integrate both like, oh yeah, protein helps me move more. But you have to start with where we talked about with those thoughts and what's actually happening. And that can be a kind of like a different journey for everyone, but that's kind of a good a goal or a good place to aim for where you can just enjoy fitness, you can enjoy movement, and you can enjoy food. And it doesn't have to be this like very complex intermingled system where it's like I eat more, so I have to exercise more or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Do you like to lift heavy? I'm just curious. Do you like to lift heavy? Do you like to do free style weights? Do you like what kind of workouts do you like to do with
Right.
lifting?
So right now I'm lifting my dumbbells, my barbell at home, and for me it's heavy, but I don't know. I see myself progressing, and that's good. I'm not trying to beat a PR because I also don't want to get injured, and I want to keep practicing. So I think, yeah, I'm using the RP method. So if it feels too easy, then I know that the next time I get to add more weights, and yeah. But I want to keep going. I want to know what my body is capable of. I want to know what I could do. That's yeah, that again, that's the curiosity. It's just like, okay, let's see. And I feel
Yeah.
excited just thinking about it.
Treating it as a science experiment.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's so helpful. Thank you so much. And you do specialize in helping women who also lift and who experience binge eating. So for anyone who maybe even is interested in, who maybe struggles with binge eating and is interested in lifting too, you could be such a good coach for them. And so I asked my guests all the same question, but before I ask you that question to finish, where can people find you? And I do want to say before you answer that, the value of working with a coach, especially with this model, there's it's investing in yourself. It's working with a coach or working with someone who can guide you is investing in yourself. And sometimes I know that for me at least, I think I can do this on my own. Okay, I got all the information. I'm going to gather all this information and then I'll figure it out by myself. But what has helped me grow so much in my life is opening myself up to support. So if I'm just encouraging the people who are listening to this, who've made it this far, if you can relate to anything that Nan is saying, like really consider the idea of working with her, of working with a coach, because there's a difference between applying it and investing in yourself versus just knowing the knowledge and trying to piece it all
Mm.
together by yourself.
Right, absolutely.
Right.
Yes. And an analogy that I use a lot is that you can be even the best hairdresser in the world. So you can know everything there is to know. You can't cut your own hair the way you would cut somebody else's. So
Yeah.
even master coaches need a coach, and it's not because there's anything wrong with them. It's just that they can't see what they can't see, and also they want results faster. So there's nothing wrong about asking help. It's not cheating. That's what I needed to know for myself. Being the good student, it's just like, yeah, but I shouldn't ask for help. Well, we live in a society. We have help everywhere. We don't, you know, do all the things we need to do. We didn't build our house ourselves. So it's okay. It's actually okay to
Yeah.
ask for help and to
Yeah.
get help. Yeah.
It so is. And I really admire everyone, like the people who invest in themselves, because it's just saying, like, hey, I need help. Please help me.
Yeah.
So, where can people get your help? None.
Right, right. So you can find me on my website, which is called Milo, Milo, bingefix.com. So this is where you can find me, and you can send me an email at nscoaching@outlook.fr.
Okay, yes, and I'll put those links in the show notes for people to reach out because I really admire and appreciate the work that you do. Obviously, we've been conversing for a while and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Thank you.
So my question that I ask every guest is if you could share one message of health
Mm.
with the world from your experience and from what you've learned and from yourself, what would it be? What would you like to share?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So my message of health will be about mental health, and we've talked about it a lot, but I love this formula. It's be curious, not furious. Whatever you've done, try to understand, try to be the detective, looking for clues, trying to understand what happened instead of the judge who's sentencing you to prison forever, because that doesn't lead us anywhere. But being curious, that opens doors. And I love also what Nelson Mandela said, I never lose, I either win or learn. So, from that perspective, if you're curious, you're going to move forward. You're not going to be, going backward. On the contrary. And isn't that much more fun to move forward and to be better and to, yeah, and to feel better, right?
Yes, I love that. Be curious, not furious, and be open to learning from what's happened.
Yes.
Yes, that is so beautiful. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing all of this information. I know just listening to this episode, people are going to be so helped. Just like
Mhm.
you started with a podcast and it opened your mind,
Yes.
I know that this will do the same for a lot of people. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and I really encourage you to check out Nan's work. Just check out her website, start following her, message her, get into her world, and as you can tell, you're going to be helped by it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fantastic to chat with you today.
Likewise.